what a month it's been for the podcast, and a month it's been for me personally. It's been a crazy month. However, the information that has come to me through this podcast is on another level. And to have Muhammad on back to back and then have Colin in the studio, these are the kind of interviews that I dreamed about in the beginning. We also turned 4 this month. I didn't make a big deal out of it. However, that's another milestone as well. And speaking of number 4, the 4th podcast for this month is with Jock Doubleday. To finish a month like this with a guest like Jock is an absolute pleasure. To be able to connect with someone halfway across the world in Texas and have a really in-depth discussion about many fascinating topics is the exact reason why I do this. And I look forward to sitting down with Jock again soon. We didn't even scratch the surface with some of the stuff we spoke about. Now, this one was recorded on Anzac Day. I did a driveway dawn service, smashed out a workout, and then connected with Jock in Texas for nearly 3 hours. Because of the Zoom platform, there was a fair bit of editing that had to be done to this one, and there's also a fair bit of editing that needs to be done to the video version, and at times the video version may be better for this one. However, I'm working my way through that, developing a new skill there. Despite that, though, this is an excellent conversation. You guys are about to go on a ride. I want to put a shout out to any original musicians with some original music who want to contribute to the podcast. Even if you've got friends that are musicians that have got some cool tunes that wouldn't mind a free plug. Because what I want to do, as much as I love the songs I play, we were taken down for a period of time because I had the audacity to play All You Need Is Love by the Beatles. Now, I understand copyright law. Let's not mess around with it. However, seriously, I wonder what John Lennon would think. But what we're going to do is we're going to turn adversity into opportunity. So reach out, DM me on Instagram, through the Facebook page, unlocking the code, the numeral 9@gmail.com, and let's connect. I'm a lover of music. I'm not that way talented. However, I can truly appreciate all types of music. So get in touch with me and let's see if we can't work something out. That's about it, guys. This has been a bumper month. The stuff that's coming is going to continue to blow this stuff wide open. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Hope all is well. Be kind, be cool, stay focused. And before I forget, enjoy Rowdy. We're going to go with Bathe in the Sun on the front and finish with Plain Lady Jane. Please look up Rowdy on Facebook. Let him know that you heard him on here and show him some love and support. He's getting back out there on the guitar, which is awesome to see. Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate you all. Until next time.
Today I sat in a field of paper daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in the sun. And I hope my world don't crash in over me. This fire get dead yesterday. I'm pretty sure the last mirror that I cracked was one of 7 years ago. And I don't want to wear those bullet holes no more. I want to kill my nightmare. daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in the sun. I think I might just bathe in the sun. I think I might just bathe in the sun.
G'day everyone, welcome back. It's my great pleasure to introduce Jock Doubleday to the podcast. How are you, mate?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
No worries, man. So whereabouts are you? Obviously, I think you're coming to us from the past, or I'm coming to you from the future. It doesn't matter which way you look at it.
Wow. Are you coming to us from the future?
Yeah, either you're coming to me from the past or I'm coming to you from the future, because it's Sunday morning where I am.
See, I took it as you were talking about like you were a time traveler from millions of years from now. So
maybe,
which you know, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how open my mind is. Maybe it's too open. I should probably close a little bit.
Yeah, bring it back a little bit.
Yeah. I've been getting into some crazy, well, not crazy, but crazy good, let's say, subjects ever since I went to visit the Bosnian Pyramid complex. I did some volunteering in 2011 for 3 months to help with excavation. And I met people there who turned me on to the idea of extraterrestrials and, you know, the cosmic family and all sorts of stuff that I had no experience with. I didn't believe in ETs. I didn't believe in UFOs, although my friends had all seen UFOs. It's just that I didn't know what to make of their stories. It's like, I believe them. But then, you know, what do I do with this isolated incident of them saying, I saw 3 triangles fly across the sky in about 3 seconds? I don't know what to do with that information, you know? So until I got to the Bosnian Pyramids, I hadn't really gotten the downloads. I got so many downloads about larger things than just, as we were saying earlier before this started, about eating, sleeping, and dying, you know?
Yeah. So back up a second, mate. What led you to, because I have been poring over your stuff over the last few days in preparation for this. So you said, because obviously you went back there for 23 months in 2015, and we'll get to there. However, why? Because obviously the Bosnian Pyramid is one of those ones. I mean, we're dedicated here to this megalithic society that once existed, and it seems to be almost every day there's more and more evidence piling up. But the Bosnian Pyramid seems to be a bit of an enigma, or, you know, it's as in, I didn't even know that they were excavating it in 2011. So what led you to even go there?
Well, they started a volunteer program in 2010, and volunteers from all the continents except probably Antarctica came, and you know, in droves, because people had been hearing about this, and the real dedicated. It's like when a band starts and there's dedicated fans. Well, the real dedicated people to the Bosnian Pyramids idea came out and volunteered, and they were helping excavate Riverbed Tunnel. Now, this is a really cool story. Should I go into the story of Riverbed Tunnel?
Yeah, look, absolutely, mate. I mean, looking at that loose fill, because when I was watching your videos, that loose fill that they're bringing out from the tunnel, that sort of reminds me of Göbekli Tepe. It reminds me of, you know, that at some point they filled these things in for whatever reason, you know, whether it was prior to the cataclysm or whichever way we look at it. But yeah, tell us about the tunnel, mate. So that's
all right. Now I'm gonna share a screen just to give people an idea of what the heck I'm talking about.
Righto, we're back. We understand our technology now, Jock, don't we, mate? And we can see now the. So we're talking about is it the Ravi Tunnel, mate? Is that how you say it?
It's Ravne, R-A-V-N-E. We turn off
Ravne. Okay.
And yeah, Ravne means flat.
Okay.
And that's another interesting feature of this incredible labyrinth that Dr. Sam Osmanagic found in Bosnia, in the Bosnian Pyramid complex, is that it's completely flat. Now it's a labyrinth, so it's winding around in all these different ways, all these branches. And the more of this fill-in material that the volunteers and the employees of Archaeological Park Foundation discover and bring out, the more more branches of the tunnel are found and more side tunnels off those branches, endless side tunnels, endless water channels that open up. But here's the incredible mystery of this stuff that you're looking at right now on the screen. For some reason, 4,600 years ago, the tunnel that was built with the pyramid complex an estimated 34,000 years ago was filled in by an unknown advanced culture. And you mentioned Göbekli Tepe and the fill material they used there to carefully pack it to probably protect it from something. Was it protecting it from other people, humans? Was it protecting it from other races that were coming in? Was it protecting it from the climate changes and flooding? I don't know. But in this case, you've got a tunnel that they could have protected with, let's say, a meter of concrete at the entrance.
I was just going to say, you just put a door on it. Just put a door on it and dirt in front of it, and it's done.
Put a big rock, put a big rock in front of it, whatever. And no one would ever see it. No one would ever know. But that's not what they did. This labyrinth goes for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meters, and it was filled in to the brim. Not with even 1 centimeter settling at all. Somehow they filled it in to the brim for most of that. I'd say about 90% of the labyrinth was filled. The only channels that were not filled were the side tunnels that ended up opening out into water channels. So the water channels, which also wound around and then stopped, were left open, so that when we excavated the material from the side tunnel a little bit, we excavated say 3 meters of material, then suddenly they would open up and we could just walk down this water channel, which would start at, as we said, the tunnel is flat, right? So Romney Tunnel, flat tunnel. The tunnel is flat, but in the water channels, it slowly goes down. So you start with a centimeter of water, and as you walk down, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it keeps getting deeper until it's about your hips, and then it stops somewhere down there. So say 50 meters, 100 meters, 90 meters, 120 meters. There's no regularity to the length of the tunnels. But those tunnels also have side tunnels from them, which have not been excavated because to deal with the water, you've got volunteers with wheelbarrows and shovels, and you'd have to somehow get into the water channel and take out the side tunnel fill-in material. And that hasn't been done yet. It's just too much work. So, there's all these mysteries surrounding it, but and he actually did. He actually did pump out one of the water channels to see what would happen, and what it did was it filled directly back up afterwards, slowly. So in other words, the water is from below, and it's coming to a certain level, and the level matches the level of the tunnel. In other words, it's clearly an engineered tunnel. It's not just that they dug it; they built the dang tunnel.
So that was going to be one of my questions, mate. Was does the fill separate? Is the fill of a different consistency and different geological profile to the tunnel itself? Like it's different rock? Because obviously we're looking at the fill here. What's the
All right. Well, I'll show you. As we talk, I'll just go find a ceiling and wall.
That's okay.
Photo. Let's see if I can.
What we'll do, what we'll do too, is I'll make sure I post everything to when we post this one. I'll send everyone your links and all that sort of stuff, because, as I say, guys, I've been looking at this stuff for the last few days, and I've got a lot of questions. And it's another one of these things where all this evidence continues to come, and we don't actually see. There's so much of it. There's so much of it where this megalithic culture echoes around the world, and we don't understand it and there's so many different forms of it. And how old is it? We can't understand how old it is. This, oh, here we go. Yeah, look at that.
All right, so here's an even better example, I think, because it has all the features in one pic. Full screen.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So as we were saying, So you've got this fill-in material, which is loose sand and river stones, period. That's what it is. There's nothing. Occasionally there's some clay in there, but it's pretty rare. So it's mostly loose sand and river stones. In other words, something that can be dug out at some time in the future. Mm-hmm. So like I said, they could have concreted it, but they just didn't. They made it loose. Mm-hmm. But still a pain in the butt for anyone coming upon this tunnel to take out.
Yeah.
So then the question is, what are they hiding, or what are they protecting? What exactly is happening there? So that's a huge question. And remember, the culture that came and filled it in 4,600 years ago is not necessarily, but could be, the same culture that built the pyramid complex. We don't know. We just know that they're advanced, because to fill it in and then not have any settling of that material we couldn't do that. If we filled it in a tunnel with loose sand and river stones, it would settle 1 inch, 2 inches, 5 inches. There'd be pockets of air, gaps. There's nothing like that. It's always perfect. And by the way, there's no sedimentation in there. So it's not brought in by a flood. There would be layering and sedimentation.
Yeah. So it's a consistent
particles. So it's not.
Yeah. That was going to be one of my other questions. Is it an even layer from the top to the bottom? So Jock,
it's totally even. Yeah, totally even and loose. Totally loose.
So yeah, because I'm in logistics, Jock. That's what I did for a long time, trucking and all that sort of stuff. So the way when I look at a lot of this stuff, that's how my mind works. It's like, and you are right. That's an advanced culture that, in order to move that amount of material, you know what I mean? I understand what it takes and what needs to be done just to move that amount of material. And you'd be right. If it was brought in by a flood, there'd be layers, there'd be sediment, there'd be evidence of flooding and that sort of stuff. So that's interesting. That's interesting.
I mean, because that is one of the main questions that people ask, or they'll immediately say on social media, it was brought in by a flood, and then they'll leave. But it's like, then I just patiently reply, well, there's no air pockets and there's no sedimentation. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
And also, we have these dry stack walls. Now we have the dry stack walls, which is, and if people don't know what dry stack is, it just means mortar free. There's nothing gluing the stones together. So these dry walls, which were put in at the same time that the tunnel was filled, by the way, are 4,600 years ago, are all stacked on each other with these rounded big river stones. Somehow they're still standing. How do you stack rounded stones on each other and still have them stand after 4,600 years? It's astonishing. So that's one interesting mystery, right?
What's behind those stones?
Well, that's the thing. Usually what we're looking at right now, we're looking at an empty, an open space, right? But before this was open, it had a dry stack wall in front of it. Every single side tunnel. This is a side tunnel along a main passage in Ravi Tunnel in the Bosnian Pyramid complex. So this is a side tunnel, and this thing had a drywall in front of it. It also has supporting drywalls on the side, as you can see, but that's not a normal feature. That's kind of more rare. Mostly the dry stack walls are in front of the tunnel. They're the side passages. They're not to the ceiling. See, these are to the ceiling, these supporting side things here.
Yeah, walls. I can see that. Yeah.
So usually what the people who filled in the tunnels did was, let's say that they wanted to fill in this side passage. Well, they would have come in, filled in with loose sand and river stones to the brim, then put a dry stack wall right in front of us. But the dry stack wall would have only gone, say, a third up or a halfway up, just kind of enough to lean in against the fill material to fill it, to keep it there, while they then placed more fill-in material along the main passage. Okay. So then you've got these interesting features here, where it's like they said, we need some support for this tunnel. So they cared about the tunnel enough to support it on the sides, even though they were filling it in to make it inaccessible. It's as if they wanted to come back at some time, take the stuff out themselves, and use the tunnel for some purpose. Now, what's interesting about Ravi is there have been so many healing testimonials from inside that tunnel. I got tons and tons of
I watched
healing testimonials.
I watched a few,
so
yeah.
you've seen.
Yeah.
Did you see the one, the chronic sinus infection went away after she volunteered in there?
No, I didn't see that one. So just working in the tunnel made her chronic sinus infection go away. So just breathing the air of the tunnel.
She was an Australian nurse who came to volunteer, and I called her the Australian cowgirl because she had a cowboy hat on all the time. And she was willing to be interviewed. And what I did was I interviewed her when I got wind of this this healing that went on, and she said, "Yeah, I'm a nurse. I know what a sinus infection is. I do my best to try and heal my own sinus infection, but the only time I've ever gotten relief for many years is at the beach, and it's not really curing it. It's just a little bit of a relief from the
salt water, yeah."
And, yeah, that fresh air or whatever. Yeah, the salt water, exactly. So then I interviewed her 4 days later because I wanted to do it before and after. Kind of like, oh, is it still healed? Was my question, or did it come back? And she says, no, it's totally gone. So her chronic sinus infection that she had for years as a nurse was cured by being in Ravi Tunnel and breathing that air. Now, what's in the air? There's two things that are pretty key about that tunnel. One is that it's got massive negative ion concentration. The only places on Earth that has more negative ions are big waterfalls, like Niagara or other places like that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that the negative ion concentration gets higher and higher as you go further into the tunnel. Everything's wet. There's no dust floating around. Everything's wet. And so there's all this damp air with the negative ions. Then you've got higher oxygen concentration as you move into the center of the labyrinth of the tunnel. And you're like, but how could that be? There's only one entrance, and the entrance is the exit. There's no way for airflow
exactly.
to go in. So how could the oxygen be higher, especially when there's like hundreds of tourists breathing the oxygen? How could that be? Well, they're geniuses. They're friggin' geniuses. Whoever made the tunnels an estimated 34,000 years ago. And that's a carbon dating date, by the way. So whoever built this tunnel with the Bosnian Pyramid complex knew how to move air in. And so what they did was they took the ceiling and they said, we're going to have it at a certain height, let's say a nice high height, or actually let's start at the entrance. And Ravne's entrance is super low, so you have to kind of squat down. You're kind of leaning down so you don't bang your head on the ceiling. So they got a low entrance, right? So that's high air pressure. Then they got a high. It's like a snake. It just goes up, and that's low air pressure, right? So low air pressure brings the air in through the higher pressure, right? And then it goes down. Then it goes up. Then it goes down. Then it goes up. Then it goes down. And that's how they bring the air in.
Oh, it's actually. I see. It's right. Holy shit. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's just genius.
Mate. Have we found any symbols or petroglyphs or any tools, or like what have we? How do we? Is there anything to try and put? I know because I saw some of the megalithic blocks. Basically, what I did, Jock, is I started watching all your stuff, and I thought if I'm not careful, I'm going to watch everything, and what I would rather do is ask you the questions. You know what I mean? I'd rather ask you the questions,
right? So
you can actually share with us what you've found, or what has been found over there.
It's pretty loud. Sorry.
You're right, mate. Sure. You're right, mate. So Jock's Mac overheats, ladies and gentlemen. So there we go. That's what I'm looking at. I've seen some of that stuff before.
Now, there's supposed to be 3 different cultures who came in and made 3 different kinds of petroglyphic marks on this stone, but the top ones look like they might be molded. Let's go back and just look at that again real quick.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the complex. That's the Bosnian Pyramid complex. Then inside there are many stones. They're not stones. They're ceramics. So they're ceramic sculptures, and this one happens to have some marks in it. Some of the other stones do too, but this has the most marks, and it's sort of near the entrance.
Okay.
But there's three different layers of activity.
Yeah.
So let's just look at this real quick. Boom. So I don't know for sure because I just made this video real quick one day because I thought I should get a video of the hieroglyphs or the petroglyphs. I mean,
petroglyphs.
But you know, also what's interesting is that, yeah, the petroglyphs. What's interesting is that the ones on top look kind of molded. In other words, as if when they built the ceramic sculpture that is this stone, then they impressed the marks then when it was still warm. Yeah. And the other ones look like they might be scratched.
Yeah, yeah. They look. The ones at the bottom, I've seen a lot of that sort of stuff before. That looks very similar. Has anyone attempted to do any sort of translation or any of that sort of stuff on this stuff?
They have, and it's pretty damned interesting. I got to tell you. This is what Samir came up with through the researchers that. Let's see. There's a Hungarian linguist who studied these, and he came up with. There was something like the Stargate is. They were under some kind of attack. Their Stargate is going to open. Have confidence. Something like that. It was pretty pithy. And pretty amazing, you know.
Yeah.
Something about a Stargate opening.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So now they call the script on the stone, which is a runic script, proto-script Visoko. The reason they call it proto is because it's before the normal runic language. That's what this Hungarian linguist said. He said that this is more basic than the normal runes. In other words, it predates the runes. And then the runes that we know of might have come from this proto-script Visoko. And Visoko is the name of the little village that the Bosnian Pyramid complex is in. So that's the story of that stone.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, that was actually the symbols that I was recognizing. Yeah, you can see the runic symbols there. You know, if you're in my studio, Jock,
right.
So I've actually got a set of runes sitting in the bookcase. You know, and I could go and grab those and show you those individual symbols that I saw.
Why don't you?
Okay, yeah. Hang on, give me a second. So just grabbed a handful of runes there, mate, and you can see. What did I just see there? There's definitely one that looked like that.
Okay, do you want me to go back to the? Go back to.
Yeah, there's one there. There's that one there. There was that one there on the that I just saw there. You know. But look, that's very interesting. You know, the fact that sort of symbology is represented there. That's fascinating stuff. So
I'll just go back. Oh yeah,
you're right, mate. You're right. It's all raw. I like this. I like it's a raw interview. It's a good way to do it.
All right, let's go back. I was going to try to find a photo, but I'll just go back to that. So,
yeah, there you go. Pause it there, mate. Yeah. So you can see some of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like that. You know, that's very similar to that, but it's reversed. Yeah. You can see that.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, you've got your Y symbols there. You got stuff like that. There's I only grabbed a handful. There'd be more over there, but it's definitely a Pictic type of language. You know what I mean? Like that's very interesting. So
it's almost like a pi symbol there.
Yeah. Like some of it looks like it's been scratched in, but some of it looks like I can. And so why do you keep saying ceramic, mate? How do they deem that it's ceramic?
Well, I'll just show you some ceramic stones. What some more? It's just full of megaliths. This tunnel. So what Samir did was the discoverer of the Bosnian Pyramid complex, Samir Osmanagic, who found it in 2005 after traveling the world for 10 years and looking at other civilizations, pyramid complexes, and writing books and things. You know, he came back to his own home country of Bosnia and noticed that the hills there looked kind of like pyramids. The one of them had a northern orientation, and next thing you know, he's naming pyramids in this little tiny village. Yeah. So what What was your question?
It was more to do with the like the ceramics and stuff, mate.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. I mean, this. I mean, looking at this stuff. I mean, obviously, I spend a long time researching this sort of stuff. To me, it would seem that it could even be before a lot of this stuff. Like you 34,000 years is a long time. Like that's prior to everything else. You know what I mean? That we totally understand. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, well, I'll show you this one first. Let's see. All right. So this is Megalith K5.
Yeah.
Now he also wanted to change the name because, you know, he hired me as a videographer for 19 months after I came to Volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
So we were always talking about names for videos, and, you know, how he wanted to promote the complex and various features of the complex. So he said he would rather be called a ceramic sculpture K5 and instead of Megalith K5. There's other there's K1, K2, K3, etc. But megaliths kind of sticks because that's just what everyone wants to call them. So it's Megalith K5. Oh, sorry, but this is this is K2. I apologize. For some reason I said this is K5.
That's okay.
This is K2. See, it's been 4 years since I was there. I wouldn't have made that mistake 4 years ago, but it's been 4 years, and I'm slipping. I'm getting old.
It's okay, mate.
This is K2, and it might be the most famous of the megaliths in there. It's massive. It's got these 3 cracks in it, 1, 2, 3 that meet in the center. It's got this incredible texturing. He took samples of this particular ceramic sculpture. He didn't know it was a ceramic sculpture then, but and he sent it to the lab, and then he sent it to another lab and another lab, and they all said it's a ceramic. It's an artificial ceramic. So this was built, and it was placed there also because underneath all the megaliths or the ceramic sculptures are sandstone plates that are angled to 1 degree or another, and these are sitting on the sandstone plates in a very specific way to as a base. So we know they were placed there, and I highly doubt they dragged them in like Neolithic hunter-gatherers. I think that they probably just poured them right there, placed them there with high-tech technology, because how would we pour that onto a sandstone plate? We couldn't do it, you know.
It's interesting, mate. You know, look, there's so many questions that, and unfortunately, a lot of these questions don't actually have answers, do they? Like, you know, the how, what, when, where, why. You know, I mean, as far as you keep saying the Bosnian Pyramid complex. Obviously, we're talking about the one we're talking about now is the big one. You know, that's the big one that we've all seen pictures of. That is obviously still covered in brush and all those sorts of things, and you've got your layering and all the sandstone layers and the clay layers in between that I want to have a chat about. How many pyramids is there thought to be within that valley there? Obviously, you got the big one, but
right. So we got the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. Let's see if I can get you a nice representation. Let's see, Bosnian Pyramid complex. We got the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is the biggest one in the complex and the tallest documented pyramid on the planet, except for Rutanija in Serbia, which is much bigger. It's a 3-sided pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And but see, Rutanija doesn't have as much documentation of it being a pyramid, so it's kind of like it's on the cusp of being recognized as an artificial structure as opposed to a mountain. So right now the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is the tallest documented pyramid. Then there's the Bosnian Pyramid of the Moon directly across the Foinica River. So that's 2 pyramids. Paired to the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is the Bosnian Pyramid of Love. And I'm just going to show you real quick. I'm just going to show you how they're paired. These 2 pyramids is pretty astonishing.
I can see there. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So in between the Bosnian Pyramid of of the sun on the right and the Bosnian Pyramid of Love on the left is an alternating clay and concrete staircase. So the clay is baked clay layers. So my thumb is on this little thin baked clay layer, right? Which is much softer, even though it's baked and hardened, it's much softer than the concrete, which is this thicker layer here. And then we've got another little clay layer as it steps up in the crevice, as it's going up with the pyramids, you know, it's going up. So then you got a concrete layer, and it's not like our kind of staircase where it's very regular depth to the layers where you just walk up it. This is more of a structural engineering deal where they said, okay, we're going to strongly join the pyramid of the sun and the pyramid of love. How are we going to do it? Well, we're going to do it with perfectly flat layers, even though the layers in this pyramids are inclined into their faces. So the inclination of the layers is always inclined into the structure, but then in between it's going to be flat layers. And we're going to do concrete for structural strength. We're going to do clay for earthquake mitigation because the clay is softer. And that's what they did the entire way up. And so this is really strong pyramid, twin pyramid structure, super strong. But that's just the beginning, because all of the structures are paired to what's next to them. And all of the structures that are on the riverbed are paired through the riverbed, which is also artificial, to the next structure across from the riverbed. What am I saying? I can't even speak. Across the riverbed from it. That's the grammar.
Yeah.
So you got the Voynitsa River as the base of the pyramids and hills along it. And so they started with the riverbed, and they just built up with the exact same engineering, the exact same building, claystone, baked claystone layers, and soft earthquake mitigating clay layers. So it's all clay. The harder baked claystones are called sandstone, but they're clay, they're pure clay. And I got that on video. I broke one apart up on Osceola Hill, which is across from Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. And it's just clay. You can see it, and you can dissolve it in your hands in the sink. And I've done a video like that too, where you can see that it's clay. There's just no question about it. It's not sand. So it's not sandstone, it's claystone, and then soft earthquake mitigating clay layers alternating. The hard baked claystones are for structural strength, just like in this crevice. We've got the concrete for structural strength, and the softer clay layers are for earthquake mitigation. So all the structures are joined through the riverbed. And as I showed you before, I might as well bring up this one photo now. Because we talked about this earlier before the interview began, how the ancients used soft earthquake mitigating clay on the right side of this in the upper part of the bank of the Voynitsa River. Yeah. So you can see the softer layers alternating with the harder baked claystone layers, right? Then on the left side of the photo, as it gets closer to the center of the river, they stopped using the softer earthquake mitigating clay. The soft stuff that you see, the crumbly stuff, is just detritus from where the river left it when it got lower in the summer. Yeah. So those aren't soft layers. That's all hard from the left middle of the photo to the left side. That's all hard baked. And they adhered all these hard layers somehow super strongly. And there's no way we could do that. There's no way we could adhere baked claystone to the next layer in time. And these go for hundreds of meters or 50 meters or 500 meters, these layers. So to make that layer and then lay another layer on top of it, it's going to melt into it and be adhered to it in time before it cooled. We want below it cooled. There's no way we could do that. So they had some real incredible technology.
So it's interesting. And it's fascinating with this stuff, and the more I research it, because obviously, in order to research this stuff correctly, you've got to understand a little bit about geology and stuff like that. Whereas geology would say that they are sedimentary layers, but the clay stone, and then you've got the that layering like that, that's unlike anything I've ever seen. And that was one of the things that really shocked me about your videos when you were actually describing that. It's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. You know, I can see that there is separate layers. You know what I mean?
Well, also they've got sectioning. So we've got the horizontal layers that alternate hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, all the way up. And what a coincidence that would be for geology, right? And then we've got sectioning. We've got sectioning of the bank. So the riverbanks, and so as we move up, the layers get thicker. And you'll have this really thick, say, I don't know, 1.5 feet, 2 feet thick block. And on the sides of the block, you can see it's smooth, it's vertical, it's regular. Next block, smooth, vertical, regular face, right? And each block, it's not like, oh, nature happened to lay this hard layer down and then there was a crack or a fracture that happened to come through. They're not cracks and fractures, they're clear, delineated right angle lines with smooth faces, smooth interior faces to each block section, you know? And then in between them, you've got this thin soft earthquake mitigating clay, and then above them, the soft earthquake mitigating clay, and below them, the soft earthquake mitigating clay. It's so obvious. And you can see that in the riverbank at say knee level, they start to have these bigger, or like the level of your stomach, they start to, if you're standing in the river, you can see the larger blocks start to appear. Whereas the river itself has the more thin layers.
Have they done any LiDAR scans of the Bosnian Pyramid, just out of curiosity?
They have, and I'll show you a picture right now.
Oh, there you go. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I wrote an article about that, and let's see.
Because that would surely reveal some very interesting stuff. Because I think that the other issue we deal with, mate, with a lot of these things, obviously moving climate, shifting climate growth and that sort of stuff, is it all gets covered over by, you know, if we're talking 34,000 years, the earth does its own thing. It drops seeds, there's trees, there's dirt, there's, you know, leaves, you know, rivers running through, fires, ash, you know. So whatever the original structure was once upon a time, it may not be, you know, we actually can't see that. And look, that's some of the stuff we're seeing down here in Australia. You know, we want to try and get some LiDAR imaging done so we can actually see through the brush, because if we can see through the brush down below where it actually is, then, man, you know, we're actually getting a better look. What I find interesting too, Jock, while you're finding that picture, is that it's only through our emerging technology that we're beginning to understand how sophisticated some of these things are. And without that technology, we would have no idea, which is, you know, I find that fascinating, that as the technology advances, that we, more and more things are opening up as far as this previous megalithic advanced culture that once existed, you know, and the multiple types of techniques that they're doing. I do want to talk to you about the concrete and stuff, because that's a fascinating one as well. Seems to be more and more evidence of that coming through, that some of this stuff is poured, you know, some of this stuff only makes sense if it is concrete, you know, which is fascinating.
Right. And what you're saying about the technology, the rise in technology being so key to our understanding is completely right on. And, you know, all these LiDAR scans, although they are expensive, well, it's more expensive to take a team into a jungle for, you know, 25 weeks and do even less work and not know anything really, because there's so many trees and so much foliage. But if you just do the LiDAR scan, it's all done, you know, it's all done in one day. So it's pretty amazing what we can do. But let me just share a screen real quick so you can see some of this crazy stuff. So here's the LiDAR image of the complex.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
So let's see, this curving guy down here, that's the Temple of Mother Earth. It's a curving pyramid, basically. And it's like a satellite dish-shaped structure. it's facing north, just as the best orientation of any pyramid on the planet, the north, the cosmic north orientation of the pyramid of the sun over here. That's that really good side to the pyramid of the sun is facing north. So the northward facing sides of these structures seem to be the most important for the ancients. And there was one theory by somebody that I heard talking about a mothership above the North Pole that was bringing information from the pyramid complexes around the world. So the northern orientation of the faces was sending some kind of information to this mothership. Now, I don't know if people want to go there or not. That doesn't they don't have to. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is the beauty of the structures in their incredibly meticulous engineering. If you go on the pyramid of the sun or any of these structures, pyramid of the moon over here, pyramid of the dragon down here, pyramid of love next to the pyramid of the sun, if you just start digging, you'll find the hard baked claystone layers inclined into the face of the structure, and then the soft earthquake mitigation clay above it on the sides of each block, and then again hard baked claystone. And it's so meticulous, and on top of those stones is texturing. On the bottom it's always flat. So these baked clay stones, they always made them flat on the bottom with texturing on the top, and we don't know why there's texturing. It could be for, as you might imagine, for earthquake mitigation, to have some instead of slipping, if being flat, it would have a little push against, because they're so deeply gouged, all these stones.
It sort of make, like, just off the top of my head, it makes sense that if you've got a flat stone, gives you a flat surface, rough surface on the top, that's where you put your mortar or your softer material. It's going to allow that to get purchased. You know what I mean? Like that sort of
right.
It sort of makes sense to me. I see, and the interesting thing with this LiDAR image is, like, there is a lot of flat faces facing north, isn't there? I mean, the other thing is too, like, if we're dealing with 35,000 years, like, how much has that landscape changed all by itself as well? What did it actually look like before that? I see you've got the Ravi Tunnel labyrinth up there to the top left. So where does that finish in the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun? Where does that actually go to, or is it?
It's very oddly, it starts quite high up in the hills. Most tunnels that I know of or that I've seen start near the riverbed. And that's what Ktk Tunnel does. I think Ktk might be marked on this. All right, so it's not marked, but anyway, Ktk is near the river. And then, but this entrance for Ravne is way, 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 way up in the hills. And like I said, it's totally flat. Pretty amazing structure, incredible winding labyrinth. And it goes toward, sort of in a very labyrinthine way, it kind of goes toward the Pyramid of the Sun. But what Semir, the discoverer of the pyramids, is always trying to do, as they bring out this fill-in material from endless passageways, is to follow the ones that go toward the Pyramid of the Sun in the southeast direction, and not the other ones. But see, the thing about this labyrinth is that if you start to follow a southeasterly branching tunnel, that's not going to end up going straight to the Pyramid of the Sun. It's going to start branching again. It's going to curve around again. So you never know for sure which is the tunnel that's going to lead you to the Pyramid of the Sun. Now, what they did was they did some, I'll just show you another picture, which I think you'll like, which is not a LiDAR scan, but a ground penetrating radar scan that Klaus Dona did.
Good.
Okay, so let's see. Ground penetrating.
So is there anything actually underneath the pyramid of this, the largest pyramid? Like, have we got tunnels that go underneath that? So are you trying to join one to the other, or what? Yes.
And here they are. All right. Whoop. All right. So that there is what the ground penetrating radar scan found. Then he did another one. So this was done in 2010. Then he did another one in, I think, 2014, more extensively. But here, so I was there as a volunteer in 2011. He'd done the scan, this ground penetrating radar scan from a somewhat secret satellite. In other words, he won't reveal the name, the full name of the person who gave him the scan for free from what is probably a military grade or military satellite. So this guy just helped him because Klaus said, "Do me a favor, I'm going to do a lecture at the Bosnian Pyramids conference, and I need something cool." So he's like, "Okay, I'll give you the scan." And this is ground penetrating radar. The different colored lines are different depths of tunnels.
Okay.
The white lines are 10 meters, as I remember. Oh yeah, it's actually marked on there. Let's see. And the blue ones are deep. So anyway, that people can find that info on the internet. So this is basically looking from the north, but we're kind of angled over a little bit, so we can see the easterly side too. And you can see that incredible tunnel network. And guess what? The tunnel that's off to the right on the top, on the very top, that white tunnel there. Yeah. There's another one below that white tunnel. It's black because it's so deep. And I can show you that scan right now. And it goes. See this black line. Now we're looking from straight above, and the northern face is over here. So we're kind of switched around. So now west is the way it's supposed to be, and east is the way it's supposed to be. So this black line follows.
This black. We're back on the LiDAR scan, mate. I can't see that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. I'll take that off.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see it looking down from a Google Earth image. Yeah. Right.
So west is west, east is east. In this image, it was switched around a little bit, but on the other one. But so this black line that comes out of the pyramid is super deep, and that goes all the way to Ravne. So what they've been trying to do, because Ravne is way 2.5 kilometers northwest from there. So this black line curves all the way around and meets Ravne. So he found that with the ground penetrating radar. So what Samir is trying to do is find the one tunnel in this labyrinth of Ravne, 2.5 kilometers northwest.
Yeah, to make his way to the thing. Yeah.
That joins that long black line. Then they can get inside the tunnel, inside the Pyramid of the Sun. How awesome would that be? I mean, I don't know what they're going to find, but how cool would it be to be inside a pyramid built 34,000 years ago, right?
That's insane. That's insane. The fact that, I mean, and look, I'm going to ask an obvious question. Has there been mining done in the area? Like this is the obvious question. You know, are we looking at these tunnels? Are we looking at evidence of mining once upon a time, or not really? There's nothing.
Well, you know, what Samir did in the beginning was to have to deal with a lot of people saying a lot of things which were against the idea that these are actually pyramids built in ancient times, but they're just natural features. So he had to defend himself, and to do that, he did a lot of lab analysis of material. And so what he found was that in the two tunnels that he found, well, he didn't find KTK because they already knew about that, but they thought it was dug by soldiers during the war, or at least inhabited by them, and maybe it was a mining tunnel before. So he just went in, got samples, sent them to the labs, and when they came back, there's no metals, no silver, no gold traces, no copper, nothing. Yeah, there's no traces of any kind of metals that might have been mined. In other words, these tunnels, and by the way, clearly, Ktk Tunnel has a different construction than Ravne, and Ktk is clearly built from the ground up. In other words, they built the hill and left Ktk as an empty space, and there's no question about it. So if people want to find my article and my videos on this on Ktk, they can just go to Ktk Tunnel, built, not dug. Ktk was left as an empty space. Yeah. So just search empty space.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. But we'll chuck all the links in. We'll put all the links to your YouTube channels and all that sort of stuff in the show notes. This is interesting stuff, man. So anyway, so as far as the petroglyphs and the symbology, obviously, I know you in one of the videos you were talking about that they seem to think that the first people to settle there were the Romans, but the Romans only ever took stuff over. They very rarely did they actually settle something brand new. You know what I mean? They marched into a place that they knew was there and took it over. So I mean, as you know, like we say the narrative, right? The overarching narrative. How old is this area as far as inhabitants in Bosnia? About 4,500, did you say, Roman times? Is that basically what they're saying?
You mean how old is the settlement?
Yeah, when was it first settled, supposedly?
Well, I mean, they have Illyrian culture there, which is before the Romans. So
Yeah.
I guess most people would say that a cultured civilization came in with the Illyrians, but obviously the Illyrians, neither the Illyrians nor the Romans had the technology to build those pyramids, which are absolutely gargantuan. And they had a different technology from the Romans. In other words, if the Romans had decided we're going to build some pyramids now for no reason, because they had no reason to do that, they would have built them a different way. These are not Roman structures in any sense of the word. There's nothing about them that says Roman. They're concrete. The concrete on the Pyramid of the Sun is much harder than any Roman concrete. It's been tested at 133 megapascals. Megapascals has to do with units of atmospheric pressure. So how many atmospheres at the base level of Paris, France? That's the neutral point. That's one unit. One atmosphere is where the pressure is at Paris, France. How many of those Earth atmospheres, the pressure from those, would it take to break this concrete? All right. So 133.8 megapascals compared to most of our modern day concretes, which are 60 to 80 megapascals.
Yeah, right.
So really, really way stronger. The labs told him that it was heated up to 500 degrees. I can't believe I forgot that.
That's okay, mate.
I'll go find it right now.
That's okay. But so basically it got to 500 degrees. Does it? I mean, Celsius is obviously hotter than Fahrenheit. However, it got to 500 before it started to crack. Is that basically what we're saying?
Well, what I meant was that the ancients used heat to make it strong.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So they heated it up 500 degrees, and I still can't find that. I'll find it right now. Hold on. It's so ridiculous. I can't believe I forgot this.
That's okay. It's okay.
I've only typed this about 10,000 times. Let's see. I gotta get out of that document.
So basically, I mean, it's not that important, Jock. Basically, you're saying is that they used the pouring or the baking technique for this stone was done at 500 plus degrees.
Oh yeah, 500 Celsius, 932 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
They baked it.
So, I mean, is there any? I mean, the thing is about this sort of stuff too, mate. Is that where's the evidence of the kiln? You know what I mean? If they're baking these stones, A, how did they get them in there? B, how did they get them out of there? But surely there would be we only understand it as like a factory. You know what I mean? There'd be a factory or evidence of some sort of where all this stuff takes place. I mean, you see the same thing at all these megalithic sites. It's like, okay, where they actually did the work, you know, or did it magically happen at the site, you know? And that's where I think we run into timescale variance. Whereas I think, you know, you're talking about 4,500, 34,000. We can't, they're numbers to us, Jock, you know, like, oh yeah, it was 34,000 years ago. We don't understand that. You know, that's what's that, 340 plus lifetimes ago for everybody, you know. And the earth has been through so many cyclic changes that we can't even begin to understand. I think that's the there you go. That's interesting. I could show you some photos like that from Queensland.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Well, they have different. It's odd because this is the Pyramid of the Sun, and you were talking about how they might have, created this concrete that covers the Pyramid of the Sun. How do you do that in a sort of practical way? It's like you're on a slope that's about 44 degrees. First of all, it's not exactly the easiest place to work. And then what you'll notice is these slabs, if they were poured on site on a 44-degree slope, they would have been thicker at the base, at the bottom of each slab.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're equal thickness. So somehow they either poured them and had technology to not have it slip down, or who knows how they did this. We couldn't do any of this. We couldn't even get machines up on a 44-degree slope, first of all. So the whole pyramid is covered in this concrete. We could never in a million years do what they did, whoever they were and whatever technology they had.
Isn't that fascinating?
And so this is the hardest, like I said, this is the hardest documented concrete that's ever been tested, except for some modern concretes that are really specialty concretes, but nothing that we would use normally in bridges or roads,
Wow, man, this stuff's very, very, very fascinating. And as I say, you've got, I don't know how many videos you've got up on YouTube. I've watched about 15 of them, but there's a lot of information to take in, a lot more than what we're talking about here today. So are they over in Bosnia? Are they actually inside the pyramid yet? Have they found an entrance into there?
Nope.
No. Okay.
That's what they keep looking for as they excavate Ravne. They want to, and there's actually three levels to Ravne. We haven't found the entrance to the second level yet. We haven't found the entrance to the third level. And this is, scientists would say, how do you know that there's three levels? And my only answer is that there's a reader or a medium or whatever you want to call her, Sue Jones, who does readings at archaeological sites around the world and does have degrees in osteoarchaeology and other degrees, but she also has this gift that's not what we would call scientific, where she went into Ravne. I've got it on video. Just search Sue Jones Ravne Tunnel. And Samir's there asking her questions, it's fantastic. And she just goes on and then she doesn't remember what she said in the tunnel. In other words, when she gets out, she was channeling a whole bunch of intel about very specific things that Samir was asking her about. And one of the things was, how many levels are there? Other levels, And she said, there's 3 levels. Do not dig down to find the next level, because you'll break the system, because it's a very, very intricate tunnel system and you have to keep the levels separate, she said. So don't make a vertical shaft. To find the entrance from the side into the next layer down, that level down, then find the other entrance to the next level down. So they haven't found those yet. So they haven't found the other 2 levels below the one they're at now. And they also haven't found, through the labyrinth of the top level, the way to get to the Pyramid of the Sun. And she says that that's going to be in one of the lower levels. It's not even on the top level. So they're digging for something that probably, according to her, cannot be found at that level. So
wow, it's interesting stuff, mate. So obviously you were out there for 23 months. You came back in 2017. We're at 2021. Are you still in touch with those guys? How are they going now?
Yeah, 23 months total, because I was there sort of just on my own making videos for several months, but 19 months as the official videographer for Archaeological Park Foundation, just to make sure that people don't think I'm trying to say I was their videographer for 23 months. I wasn't. Yeah, I was. Sure. So anyway, the complex is just, it's on fire. It's the most active archaeological excavation on the planet is that excavation of Ravne Tunnel, the pyramids. He can't excavate every pyramid because he doesn't have the cash and he doesn't have the crew. But he has 30 regular employees doing a lot of good stuff, plus all the volunteers who come in the summer for 2-week shifts for 4 months when it's warm enough and that they won't slip off the pyramids, and so it's not too dangerous for them to work. So hundreds of volunteers every summer come in, and it's amazing. If people want to go check out some of the volunteers footage, just go to my YouTube channel, and there's a playlist that says volunteers. There's also healing testimonials from Ravi, different playlists that people can find. But there's two channels. One's called Bosnian Pyramids with an S, and the other one's called Jock Doubleday. So they can, mostly the Bosnian Pyramid stuff is over on the Bosnian Pyramids channel, although I do have some on my personal channel too. But most of the archaeology stuff I have on my personal channel is terraforming videos. So that's a different, sort of a slightly different thing, although it's all one astonishing construction project across our planet.
Well, that was sort of the next stage that I wanted to get to, mate. Is I spent, obviously you sent me a video this morning when we talked about some of the stuff that we wanted to do today. I watched that one after the Anzac Dawn service that I held out in front of my house, and then and I think I stumbled across a couple of the terraforming ones before you sent me to that one as well. I mean, you're talking about, and look, the Eagle Scout thing that's interesting, right? And I would like to talk to you about some of and this all doesn't have to be today, mate, but I would like to talk to you about, what you understand about some of these petroglyphs and potentially Egyptian connection stuff in the US as well, that it keeps popping up, but then is squashed and doesn't exist, So when you talk about the terraforming 45 degrees to the riverbeds and stuff like that, see, in my field trips here in Australia, because basically what we're doing down under here is that Australia seems to be missing out of this megalithic puzzle. However, it's not. It's just been, systematically destroyed. However, there is remnants there that we can look at and see. However, you're talking about some of this terraforming stuff that I watched this morning was like, how long ago do you think that would have been done? I mean, what are we actually trying to say here? I think that's an interesting question. Because potentially, are we talking about terraforming major continents prior to inhabitants arriving? How are we actually? What are you thinking? What's your thought process on some of this stuff?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. That's a really, really key question that I've sort of obliquely dealt with in some of the terraforming videos, because there is some evidence that crops up in front of our faces, and that's always what I'm trying to deal with in the field, is to show people what I'm looking at, so they can see that I'm not just talking. Here's what we're both looking at in real time. I haven't been here before. This is generally how I do it. This is my first time. Let's look at what we see. And so occasionally I'll see seashells in what I'm saying is terraformed sections, blocks. That I'm saying this is terraformed. Look at the section breaks that goes through many different geological time periods. It's one line, it's a vertical line, and yet there's seashells in it. So now this is an issue that goes back to the Bosnian Pyramids again. Now, people who don't know about Bosnia will probably not know about the Stone Spheres Park. But this is key to all of this question that you asked about the timeline of when the terraforming might have taken place. So what Sever did was, there was this area in Bosnia about 2 hours away from the Bosnian Pyramid complex, where there are these stone spheres. And so he made a park out of it. He cleaned it all up, got the trash out of it, made a beautiful stairway, concrete staircase down there for tourists to come. And let me just see, I want to give you some idea of these stone spheres.
I've seen them. I'm sure that Stone Sphere Park. I have seen that. But if you could show the listeners, and we may find some bits and pieces.
Great. I'm glad that you got a chance to do that, to see it, because it's pretty astonishing, really. That's the megasphere right there.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yes. And there's heaps of these around there, isn't there? And they keep finding them. And they're
And so they all came out of one hill. A lot of them came out in this flood. Well, the first time anyone knew about stone spheres in Bosnia, in this area of Bosnia, was that a huge rainstorm came. There was a big flood from the rainstorm, and this hill that you see on the left was packed full of stone spheres with the soft earthquake mitigating. Well, I don't know if it's earthquake mitigating for them, but soft clay between the spheres, so they're packed in there consciously. And so out of this hill came, say, 60 or 80 spheres. A bunch of them went down to the ocean and were lost, but some of them were still in the creek, right, which is to his right here, the worker's right in the photo. And so some of the spheres stayed there. Then they saw this recently, just a few years ago. So a worker saw, this wasn't excavated at all, it was still in the hill, but they saw a little bit of it, like a face of it. And they go, should we dig here? And somebody said, yeah, go ahead and dig. So they did, and they found this megasphere, which is the biggest one, not just in Bosnia, but on the planet. It's the biggest stone sphere ever found. And the media completely shut this down. Academia will not talk about the sphere. They call it a natural geode. Nobody will talk about it except for the entertainment press who want to say, hey, there was this funny rock found in Bosnia, isn't it? So doesn't it look like it might be natural? But we know it isn't. And that's their hilarious little article that they get ratings or views from, So anyway, those spheres. Samir did an analysis.
These spheres are found they're found in Europe as well, aren't they? Is it? I'm trying to remember where else these spheres are found. Is it Scotland? I'm trying to remember that there's some other.
They're everywhere, man. The Costa Rica are pretty famous ones. Lots and lots of them in Costa Rica. South America's got tons of stone spheres, but they're different. They're different materials depending on the location. Some are super, super hard. These are a bit softer. These are sandstone. Yeah. See, what Samir did was, and this is a broken sphere here, because what happened is that people heard a rumor that the Costa Rican spheres had gold inside them. And so the people in Bosnia said, hey, maybe there's gold inside these spheres. And they started breaking them apart with hammers, Yeah, right. And so they're broken, which is really sad. But some of them are still intact, and the megasphere is still intact because that was only found a few years ago. So it was protected in the Stone Spheres Park. So I'm going to get to the point of the whole thing is about timeline of building. So what Samir did was he took samples of these of the stones. He took samples of the stone spheres, and he took samples of the surrounding sandstone rocks that they're just presumably just natural rocks that are there and sort of in the clay around the stone spheres in this hill. And he took it to the lab and he said, okay, I've got these two samples. One's from the stone sphere, one's from the natural rock. Can you tell me the difference, if there's a difference between these things? And they said, yes, there is a difference from the lab. They said, let's see, there's two elements that were different. One was silicon dioxide and one was manganese. So basically what happened was they took, they added manganese to this stone sphere from the natural materials that was already there. Manganese is a hardener. They took out silicon dioxide and they put in calcium carbonate. So calcium carbonate is a glue and manganese is a hardener. So a glue and a hardener were added to the natural materials to make these spheres. Then you say, okay, calcium carbonate is a glue. Well, what has calcium carbonate in it? Well, guess what has a high percentage of calcium carbonate? Seashells. Right. So that's the main element. So that's a glue that can be used. Now, presumably they powdered it for this. They're probably not just chucking seashells into this stone sphere. They're probably powdering it first for maximum glue effect. But in the terraforming, my theory is that the timeline can be guessed at by saying, look, it can't be earlier than the marine organisms and the freshwater seashell organisms that were here, because we have seashells in some of this terraformed concrete.
Yeah.
So they just chucked in seashells as they went, or perhaps even living marine organisms with shells on them. I don't know. And then, but of course, to a geologist, that's just going to sound like nonsense, because they're not going to believe in terraforming, first of all, and they're going to go, well, clearly this has to be geological. If there's organisms in it, it's not going to be concrete. They would have powdered it. Well, maybe they didn't powder it.
Wow. I mean, how did that? Again, so many questions. So there was 60 to 80 of these things, those stone spheres found in Bosnia. They just got released from a hillside basically during a massive flood or storm. And again, another one of those things that echo across the globe, John. And what we see here, and I'm sure you've seen it in your travels, and we see it all over the place, is these things are echoing all over the globe, time and time and time again. If you just open your mind a bit, you can see that, as I say, stone spheres in Costa Rica, stone spheres in Bolivia, stone spheres in, I'm pretty sure it's Northern Europe. I'm sure there's some, they found some in Europe as well. That's, you're talking about thousands of kilometers, and the same sort of stuff. You're talking about, we talk, just today, mate, we talk about the runic language that I had in the corner in my studio in Australia. And then you talk about, there's the Pictish language here that we see here on the rocks in Australia, versus in Northern Europe. There's 30 to 40 symbols that seem to echo around the globe. All of this stuff leads to the big question that there was a civilization that came before us, and right. they had a different understanding of the planet. They had an unbelievable ability to work stone, or to put together massive monoliths or megaliths. I saw you did some stuff about the Baalbek stuff. So I'll let you lead, mate. Where do you want to go from here? Also, I was going to ask you about Baalbek.
Well, you're talking about this previous civilization, and to me, you live in Australia, so the Gosford glyphs are your territory. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to chime in with one thing and ask you what you think of it. Mm-hmm. People keep saying, well, clearly they're authentic glyphs, but the question is, people say, well, they're authentic and they're Egyptian if they're authentic. But to me, it's like, do we really have to call these Egyptian glyphs, or can we just say that the people who ruled the earth at one time in the past happened to be in Egypt, and they happen to be in Australia, and they happen to be every fucking where else? Because so really, are they Egyptian glyphs, or can we just call them the glyphs of the whatever the advanced race that was here before, whatever name we want to give them,
Yeah, look, to me, mate, the deeper I dig, I spent many years observing all these sites all over the globe, and I think the first time I saw your work, I think, was probably in 2018 with the Bosnian Pyramid stuff, and that sort of added to everything else that I was doing. And then I came back here to Australia, and you see polygonal masonry in Gympie. You see all this sort of, actually, I can show you some polygonal masonry if you like.
I'd love to see that, because I haven't really studied that too much. Now, Gympie is where exactly?
Queensland. Right. So I'm so the thing about Australia is it's massive, right? So basically, the Gosford glyphs are 10 hours south of me. And Gympie is about 3 hours or 2.5, 3 hours north. And there's other bits, and look, there's other stuff. There's stuff that's popping out of the woodwork with some of the work that I'm doing with some of my colleagues down here that is quite amazing. This is probably the money shot there. And what I see, mate, and potentially what we're looking at here is that there's a growing understanding. Can you see that there, Jock?
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's Gimpy?
That's Gimpy. Yeah.
Good God, man. That's just genius.
Yeah. That's outside of church in Gympie. We're seeing, and the story goes that this wall was taken from somewhere else and used as a Depression era project. We're seeing actually that, you know, that dry stacking, the dry stacking of the walls. I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen that at Gympie as well. You know, we're talking about evidence that's left all over the place, mate. And I would sort of agree with you there. Like, whoever it is just a previous advanced civilization that existed. I think one of the things I struggle to try and communicate to people as well is the level of the cataclysm that happened 13,000 years ago.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you take America, for instance, right? If depending on which, you know, if we say that multiple objects came out of the sky, impacted the ice shelf that was above, you know, Northern America into Canada, America would have been wiped from the map. Like that, we're talking continent-wide wildfires, nuclear winters, like volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, whatever was there, whatever was here prior to that cataclysm is gone. Like it is gone on a scale that we don't even understand, you know. And you know, you're you know, I know Graham Hancock spent a lot of time with his book America Before. I see all the stuff that you're doing, and there's a lot of different interesting things that are coming out of the US. But that is the remnants of what would have once been there, you know. And we deal with the same thing here in Australia. You know, there was a systematic destruction done by the British, basically. However, at the same time, it's just an age thing as well. Like there's a significant amount of evidence that there was a double impact in the Gulf of Carpentaria down here that would have hit the reset button here in Australia, actually caused a mini ice age around the world, assisted with the fall of the Roman Empire. And that happened here in Australia. We'll just show you some of this stuff. Like this is some of the, here we go. You might notice this is at the Gympie, they call it the Gympie Pyramid. I run a lot of these. I've got an app called the D-Stretch app that I run through that picks up pavement. Oh, there's some pretty butterflies. I take photos when I'm out and about. You know what I mean? I'm a wannabe. I'm a wannabe photographer, but the problem is everyone's got a 20 megapixel camera in their pocket. Here's something you'll find interesting, Jock. Actually, I've called this the preparation stone. Okay, so there is a story that goes that with some of the stone that was cut, there is apparently 3 different plants that you join together and they make an acid, and that acid can actually cut stone. Now, the reason I call this the preparation stone, because if you see here, you can actually see the layering there where it's actually eaten away the stone. So they've prepared the acid on this side, right? And then you can see they've sharpened the tool on this side, and then they've made a test cut here. And this is what I deem the preparation stone, which is just very fascinating stuff. Some symbols that they found. I was just trying to see if I could find some of the drywall stuff here for you. So you can see some of the right angles and stuff here, mate. You know what I mean? This is some of the things that I was going to show you as well. Like, look at the smooth face, right angle cuts at some of this stuff. And you can see this stuff all over the place. That one there sort of cleared that out. You can sort of see right angle cuts. There's another one there. Look at that. I mean, that's actually sectioned out, right? So if they're using this acid to cut these stones, then that would make sense. You know, like some of this stuff. And look, a lot of the things, there you go. There's your dry stacking that still exists there today.
Well, it seems like there might be different levels of cultures that came along, and the really beautiful stonework in the very first picture you showed me was, obviously the most advanced and therefore the most ancient of the cultures as we devolve.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing too, isn't it, Jock? And I'm sure you've seen this as well, mate, is that the older the deeper we dig, the better it gets. It's not the other way around. You know, it's like, how do we... But I mean, there seems to be evidence of a spiritual culture down here that we're trying to unpack, that, that many cultures came to Australia to visit. whether they were trading with the indigenous here or they were learning from the indigenous here. Because and I'd actually like to get your thoughts on this, because one of the things we spoke about was base level. I'll get out of this here now, mate. But base level spirituality on a global scale is pretty much exactly the same. It's honoring the earth, it's honoring the elements, it's honoring the directions, it's honoring everything, right? And that doesn't matter where you go. Doesn't matter what language you speak. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter none of that matters. It is exactly the same the world over. So what that actually begs is that actually, to me, represents that there was once a global spiritual culture, and I think that maybe, Jock, that science and religion were once upon a time, they were actually joined. And at the height of that, that's where we see these megaliths. That's where we see these healing properties of these sites, where they knew the spirituality of the planet and they understood that, but they also had the technology to join it together, and that's I think it was Carl Sagan, the fact that science and spirituality are deemed separate does a disservice to them both,
Wow, that's a beautiful quote.
But it's interesting, mate. It's interesting. And well, all you're showing me is more dots in this big grand puzzle that we see.
Well, that this Gympie pyramid stonework that has different, seemingly different qualities to it. It seems like around the world. Now I can't prove this.
No. We're in speculation, mate. It's okay.
It's just so people know, I'm not stating this as as absolute fact or anything, but speculating. It seems that many of the stones that are the best stones that we see, best in the sense of most regular or most intricately fit together, that kind of thing throughout the world, those may have been cast as opposed to the ones that were later quarried. I mean, we have two kinds of pyramids on the Giza Plateau, for instance. We have the mega pyramids, which some of those stones have been found to be cast. So that's not speculation, that is science. And I think that if we can say that the larger pyramids were built with cast stones, which makes sense, because why would you quarry them and drag them if you could just make concrete stones out of them on site? Then the smaller pyramids may have been built by a later culture, because they're the ones that are crumbling in the sort of the shadow of the larger ones. Because these crumbling smaller pyramids, whoever built them didn't know what they were doing, because they're already crumbling and they were built later.
It's a poor imitation.
It's a poor imitation, exactly. And so I think those are the ones that might have been quarried by these poor slaves. And then you've got the hieroglyphs of slaves dragging stones around, and people think, oh, that applies to all the pyramids. But I think it just applies to the much, much, much later ones, in that the real builders were casting stones. I mean, it seems to me that that's the basic, but I can't prove it, really, except for the science that says that they are cast.
Yeah. I mean, and look, the cast stuff I have seen, there's a few guys, there's a couple of guys I follow. One I want to try and get on the podcast. He's doing some very interesting, pointing some very interesting things about the cast stuff in Egypt, and it's well worth having a chat to him, I think. The other thing we get caught in too, Jock, is that it doesn't have to be just one thing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be everyone's, we love, and obviously we're experiencing this in a I don't want to go down a what's wrong with modern society rabbit hole. However, we have to pick teams. Why can't it be? It's like either it was a sun flare or it was meteorites that caused a cataclysm. Pick a team.
Right.
Well, maybe it was both. Because theoretically these stones came out from behind the sun. So what if they flew through the sun and dragged a big CME with it and just smashed us? You know what I mean? Why can't we say that? And I think some of the more difficult stonework we see in South America, like some of that stuff it looks like it's melted or cast, as you say. Some of the very fine work you see in Egypt. So some of it may have been, you may have quarried some of the bigger blocks to use as your base stone, and then you might, as you say, use a cast stone to fit that piece in. Oh, we don't have a stone that fits that piece. We just make that and put it in there, you know. One of the interesting things that I know you might find, I don't know whether you've looked into this before, is that in the Great Pyramids, like the three big ones, there seems to be some sort of mortar between the stones. And if you look that up on the internet, there's one sentence, right? One sentence that's repeated over and over again. The mortar in between the stones of the Great Pyramid is of unknown composition. It's stronger than we understand and cannot be replicated.
And it's harder than the stones themselves.
Yeah, and it's harder than the stones themselves. So it's like they don't know. And how can we, like, but that sentence, that one sentence is repeated ad nauseum in every single article, Wikipedia page. And it's like, it almost seems like that's being steered. You know, it's like it's hard not to put your tinfoil hat on when the same sentence is repeated ad nauseum through all of these things.
It could be a bluff, though. It could be like in other words, it could be a way of saying we just don't know, when really the controllers do know what the mortar is and how it's made, and they just want to say it's a mystery. It might be that. There's so many levels of subterfuge going on. None of us have the whole answers about anything, because we've been lied to on so many levels and so many realms our whole lives. And so we're just emerging from this. We're just emerging to realize that we've been lied to, and slowly finding out little truths about this and that, and little possibilities. Like you say, you know, keep our minds open to all the possibilities, because for instance, this is pretty cool. You know, the mud fossils guy, Roger Spur, right?
Yeah.
He found my terraforming videos posted on some ancient history Facebook page, because I posted them. I post on a whole bunch of sites, you know. And he came on and said, it's all mud fossils, there is no terraforming. And I was like, that to me is not quite the scientific way to go.
No.
Or even the friendly way to go. Like I would hold out an olive branch in this interview to Roger Spur and say, look, I don't want to get into an argument about it's all this or all that. How about we say there's a whole fuckload of mud fossils out there, and there's a bunch of terraforming out there, possibly, if you agree with, you know, my analysis of various creek beds and riverbeds and hills. It can all happen. It can all be the case, and there's a lot of other things that can happen too, like natural fossils, because mud fossils are like a branch of paleontology, a sub-branch of paleontology, because fossils, that's paleontology. Then you got your mud fossils, which are a specific kind fossil. And that, so there's lots of things happening. And, you know, if it's all terraforming, which I'm not claiming it's all terraforming, but how did the fossils get into the sedimentary layers to give us timelines? Because those are pretty clearly, you know, delineated, and the explanatory power of the geological model with fossils is really, really good. But in a lot of my videos, I say, I do kind of go overboard a bit, and I say, this is the end of geology. This seam is the end of geology, because it shows that it goes through many different time periods, and it couldn't do that. So this creek bed is built, but I don't mean that there is no geology. I'm just saying that the idea that geology is the only thing out there is incorrect. In my opinion, based on the evidence in the field. So I think your idea is good, that we allow for many different explanations, because it's an old planet. Who knows how much stuff went on here? I call it the mosh pit of ancient civilizations who came here, built, they warred, they destroyed other civilizations. Then a flood, the global flood came and washed everything away, and then some more civilizations came. I mean, how are we supposed to decode that now, after millions and millions and hundreds of millions of years of civilizations doing all sorts of crazy shit and killing each other, and then breeding with some other race, and then you know, it's just a mosh pit of craziness from in the past, you know?
Yeah, look, I totally agree, mate. And look, you know, and you couldn't say that blanket everything's terraforming, because this planet is beautifully made in some instances where there's natural valleys and natural creeks. But if you're talking about, you know, like you say, in between the Bosnian pyramids where they have the riverbeds, you know, if you want to steer some water somewhere, we do that today. You know, we do that. We make man-made lakes. We make man-made rivers. We do this stuff in housing estates here in Australia, where we divert the water into a lake, we do this, we do that. And that is what you're saying is terraforming. We use concrete to steer the rivers and steer the stormwater and do all these sorts of things. But on the other side of that, you know, if you go, I could take you to 100 places. I'm sure you could do the same near your house, where it's beautiful, natural landscape. That what I find with this stuff is that people are so attached to their ideas. It's like, no, this is what it is, and that's it. And so, well, no, how can you know that? One of the things we said on this podcast 100 times, Jock, is that the one thing we understand is that we know nothing. If you take a single pixel out of the screen that you're looking at, that's potentially your knowledge. Probably not even that, but the whole screen is what is actually available to you, and you'll never understand it. But if there's two ways to look at that too, Jock, is it can be, I see it as a freeing thing. It frees me that I know nothing, but some people, it freaks them out. You know, they can't grasp that concept. The evidence the terraforming evidence, that rabbit hole that I went down before we started this interview, is very, very compelling. And the thing is that I could take you to some riverbeds here and show you some stuff. You know, that is interesting.
Well, if you want to search for those photos, I'd be happy to see them. But I just want to share a screen real quick and show people what we're talking about when we talk about the Bosnian Pyramids riverbed.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have just because this is the whole key to the terraforming came from me walking up this riverbed in Bosnia and finding out that it was built. And I thought, well, if a riverbed is built here, how long does it go? And I followed it. I went way outside the complex in a taxi and then walked back into the complex from where he dropped me off. And I just diagnosed the riverbed, and it's got the 45-degree angle construction that the riverbeds here in Texas do, and that the riverbeds in California do. And it's got sectioning on the banks, and it's clearly a built structure. It's got the alternating hard and soft layering. So that's the Voynitsa River that winds placidly through the Bosnian Pyramid complex. And here's another view. And so you can, that's the very first image I got. That's the very first sight of it that I got when I decided to go down and see if it was built. Wow. So I thought, well, why would the ancients place their pyramids, these massive, largest documented pyramids in the world, Pyramid of the Moon, Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia, why would they place them on the earth where a river that goes by could just erode it from the base and it would just fall? It doesn't make any sense. So I thought, well, I wonder if the riverbed, which is at the base of all these pyramids and hills, was also part of the construction, so that it's essentially one unit, one mega constructed unit, and everything is attached. So that's the first thing I saw. I was like, holy crap, that looks like construction to me. And I got down in it. I walked up it, and I made many videos just walking up the Voynitsa, looking at stuff, and people can find those. And so you've got this interesting channeling that they do. They build it way up on the outside banks of a curve, and geologists would say, well, that's just natural geology. The water's naturally following, going away from the built-up bank and going the other way. So you can't prove that that's a terraformed river from that, and that's true. But there's so many aspects of the riverbeds in Bosnia that meet there. The Bosna and the Voynitsa River in the heart of the complex, they meet right there in Visoko village, that show that this is built. I mean, there's no difference between the construction of the riverbed and the construction of the hills and pyramids on either side of it. It's the same construction. And there's no way you can say, oh, here's where the natural riverbed ends, and here's where the construction begins. It's all construction. It's so clear. There's no doubt about it. They haven't sent a formal team down to do it, but it's all documented in all my videos and in my articles. So this is the key to, this is what started me on the terraforming theory, was following this river out and seeing that there was no end to the building. I was way outside the Bosnian Pyramid complex, and it was still built. It still had the signs of being built. I'm like, how should I go up every single of one of the 12 tributaries to this river? So I did. I went up the main tributary, the Dragica, way outside. I took taxis on a couple different days, and one of them was the Dragica, and that's built too. So if a tributary to this river is built, then probably the other tributaries are. I don't know, because I haven't had the time to explore all the 11 other ones. Well, you know, so that was the beginning of the theory. I just wanted to make sure that people understood where it came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up this specific river. So,
and look, the other what one of the thoughts I had, mate, while you were talking about that is that the one thing that echoes around is with these pyramids is they all have water. They all have some sort of liquid or something underneath them, don't they? You know, like that's something that is echoed again and again and again. I'll show you something here, mate. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on it. So this is what I'm going to show you here is an axe grinding place in Queensland, where the Indigenous used to sharpen their tools and sharpen their axes. And there's many different examples of that. However, we found a very interesting imprint. Can you see that there, bud? So that imprint there is found in that stone.
Huh. Wow, that's amazing. Huh.
And it doesn't make any sense, right? So
no.
And I actually took a sample of this stone away and I sent it down to a geologist friend of mine down in Victoria. And basically they came back with it was sandstone. I showed them the imprint, and like in order to push that into the sandstone, whatever that tool was would have had to been over 2,000 degrees Celsius. And it's just interesting stuff. And it's actually a right angle. Look at that, Jock. You know what I mean? Like it's a perfect, it's a tool mark of some description. But why I wanted to show it to you is that there's all these right angle, these different cracks and stuff as well that look very similar to what you're saying there. And you can see a lot of this stuff is
in that photo there that you just, is that the line that goes up to the right between them, is that fill in with some mortar, or is that just some loose stuff that came in later?
I don't know. So basically the other thing, because I sent a heap of these photos down there as well, and the geologist said, look, so this one here, you can see this here looks like it's been cut, and the geologist actually agreed that it had been cut. Right. But interestingly, if you go along this is a bit of a research trip that I did. You can see these lines through here. Look at that, right?
Yeah.
But apparently,
that line looks like a seam. That's what I always call a seam in ancient concrete. It's joining those two sections together. So to me, those were built. In other words, that's concrete in sections, laid down in sections, and joined with some kind of heating mechanism, possibly sonic heating. So then you go, the people who are making these impressions must be a later culture, or because it's not the same kind of thing going on, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, look at that sort of stuff there. Like, I mean, that. Yeah. The geologist said, and the geologist said that this type of stone is known to break in right angles, is basically what he said to me. But I mean, that's like a perfect, some of these right angles are damn near perfect. They're generally not any right angles in nature. You know what I mean? Like
right. Plus it doesn't really look like a break. It looks more like a molded stone to me. It doesn't have the feel of a break. It looks like it's been cast, you know. It's like a modern casting, you know.
And this is stuff, found this stuff. This was all over this axe grinding site. I'm gonna head back up there and go up and down the river, going up and down the creek, to see what else I can find. That's sort of look that there. That's sort of been broken off there as well. You know, it's but yeah, it's interesting stuff, mate. And it was sort of when I was looking at some of your videos today, I'm like, isn't it fascinating how, you know, literally on the other side of the globe, we have very, very similar, different, similar rocks, similar seams, all these sorts of things. You know, these things are echoing and echoing and echoing. You know.
Yeah, I just went to California in October, And check this out. Let me just share screen real quick with you, because this is exactly as I was looking at what you were showing me from Australia. I was like, oh my God, it's just like in California.
Yeah.
This is from Rock Creek in the Sierra Nevada mountain range.
Oh, there you go. Look at
And
that.
it's just it's exactly what you found. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so what I found in this creek bed, which I extensively videotaped, I have like a bunch more videos coming out. I've got a few out already, but I spent hours and days down there because they had a cabin right on the creek for about a week, specifically for that reason, because I knew I would want to diagnose it. And when I diagnosed it, I was like, oh my God, it has the 45-degree angle. It seems to go all the way across the creek for 50 meters, straight lines, over and over and over again, always 45 degrees. In the base layer. Sometimes there's alternating right angles, like this thing is, I think this is a right angle to the flow of the creek. So this is associated with the 45-degree terraforming project that is Rock Creek in California. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, see that where I was showing you there, Jock, is actually a creek bed. That's a riverbed.
Okay.
That in when the rains come, water's been flowing over that for who knows how many thousands of years, and it's actually an important indigenous site because it's deemed like a shared site. So basically, anyone can go and swim there. They can go and sharpen their tools there. They'd have meetings there. It's sort of like on a border of a couple of different territories as far as indigenous people here are concerned, which is also very interesting. You know what I mean?
Right. I think the riverbeds are pretty key because that's the gathering place for later cultures. If they were built, if any particular riverbed or creek bed was built, then you've got that construction evidence there. If one can diagnose that, and then you've got later cultures coming because the water's there. And what you said before about the water being important, I think this is the key. I think that if they did build riverbeds and creek beds around the world, which are really just valleys between hills. In other words, they're building hills with the base of riverbeds and creek beds. So if they did do that throughout the world, they're doing that to control the flow of water, to create turbulence, to create negative ions for this is speculation, obviously, about their motivations. But it seems to me that it would make sense that if somebody's building hills, they're a benevolent race who are creating water courses that will give us a certain kind of turbulence to create the negative ions and to vortex the water. And so it's going back and forth in this sinuous way. And Victor Schauberger, of course, the great hero of the science with the water function, he showed that there's a spiraling as it goes down back and forth. It gets a spiraling shape to it. Plus, there's the vortexing. That's the vertical vortexing of water, and so it's giving more information to it. And this is where my knowledge, my little pixel of knowledge, stops, because I don't know what kind of beings need water to have vortexed information in it, or if they do. I'm just speculating, sort of based on the small amount I know about Victor Schauberger, who talked about the spiraling nature of water and how important that was. And so, just based on his basic idea, and I haven't read his books, but Christopher Kindmark, who has read all of his books, accompanied me to the Dragica River, the tributary to the Fojnice in Bosnia, and he's on video talking about Victor Schauberger in this tributary that's clearly also a built river that goes into the Bosnian Pyramid complex. So it's pretty cool to bring Victor into this, because he's the master of water. So when you mention water, I think why would the ancients need to channel water in certain ways, unless it was for very specific energetic purposes
Yes.
beyond our present, beyond basically our basic present understanding of what water can do. The magic of water is still
Yes.
beyond our understanding.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, you know, the basic one is no water, no life. Basically, that's the reality. However,
Right.
you know, I think a lot of this stuff with the modern archaeology gets palmed off to be, oh, they did it for spiritual purposes, or it was a ritual or whatever. You don't build massive pyramids just for fun. They have function. So if in the base of all pyramids, we're talking in Bosnia, we're talking in South America, we're talking in Egypt, we're talking in Indonesia, we're talking all of these pyramids that we find all over the planet, all have water around them or in the base of them, then there's a function behind that. There's a reason that we're doing that. You know, most sacred sites back onto a river, they back onto, or they have water running past them. And yeah, the magical properties of water, along with so many other things, Jock, I don't think we understand. You know, and it's just, you sort of slipped when we devolved in the conversation earlier. And I wanted, you know, that's spot on. I think once upon a time, we knew a lot more than we do now. And we've created a mechanical society that doesn't honor the elements as it should. And therefore, we don't have an understanding as we should.
Right, right. And it's interesting how Victor Schauberger comes along and almost seemingly out of nowhere, just by spending time in nature as a youth, he sort of comes up with this information that is way beyond anybody's understanding back then, and still way beyond most people's understanding right now. I mean, I've tried to read his stuff, and it's pretty deep. It's dense and deep. And it's like, how did he come up with all this stuff? You know, they talk about Tesla being a genius, but Tesla never said he was a genius. He said that he gets these downloads of information into his brain. And I wonder if Victor Schauberger also got downloads. In other words, that it wasn't that Victor was a genius, it's that he was the subject of someone sending him downloads of information. He was like the person who was going to pass it on to humanity. They had chosen him. Someone had chosen him to get the downloads, because you know, Tesla said that his brain is a receiver, and I think that's what's happening with a lot of these quote geniuses.
Oh, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, yeah, one of the well, I'm a teacher during the day. However, one of the things I use as a teaching moment when we talk about logistics is that, you know, we're sitting in a classroom and I say, listen, the chair that you were on, the table, everything that's around us was in a warehouse one time. It was in storage. It came on a truck, all that sort of stuff. But then I'm like, okay, that's the logistical side. How about we talk about this for a second? All of the stuff that we've built just came out of the ether, right? Someone sitting here in a room just went, oh, I'm going to build, you know, let's make this, you know, let's make that, let's make, you know, this stuff just comes out of the ether. You know, our hubris, the unfortunate hubris of the modern human says it's all us and we're just fucking awesome. However, I think these ideas, they come from somewhere else, you know, like, you know, you talk about, you know, your work, Jock, you know, you talked about passion and purpose, you know. This podcast is my passion project. I've tried to walk away from this a couple of times, but it calls me back. It calls me back. It's like, no, you're not doing you're not going away. You can't do that. You know, like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You know, we all have these passions, these creatives, you know.
Right. And then you go, if it's calling you back, you go, wait, who is it that's calling me?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. What's calling me back? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because somebody's got to be calling you. It's not just, you know, there's someone on the other end of the telephone, basically. So, but what you said about the ether is amazing, because literally what you said It's all coming out of the ether. Everything we build is coming out of the ether. That's what I go on about endlessly, because Tesla said, first of all, that the ether is material. It's so important because people think, oh, first of all, the ether doesn't exist because the universities tell us the ether doesn't exist. But that's all based on some faulty BS that they did when they simplified Maxwell's equations. And so the simplified version discards the ether. So Tesla's ether is discarded from science by simplifying these amazing equations. Well, Tesla knew that there's an ether. That's the medium for light. That's the medium for everything.
That's what joins it all together.
Yes. And he said that it's not just some energetic thing. He said it's a material ether. And you go, okay, if it's material, then we can get all the material that we need. We, meaning someone who's advanced enough to figure out how to do it, can grab stuff from the ether and go, I'm going to build a planet now. And I'm going to use a randomizing computer program for hills and valleys and everything else to make it beautiful. See, that's the punchline that I didn't get to yet, but there, I just gave it to you slightly early. That's what I think could have happened, is that the planets are being built as hollow homes for people to live inside of, and then some people live outside on the roof of the house, as it were. But out here, there's cosmic rays, global flooding, global drought, all sorts of shit that the people on the inside are not dealing with because they have their own contained environment. Corey Good says the Anshar who live in the inner earth can get light from sound. So all you do is create light with sound. You can grow crops in there, so you don't have to worry about the fact that there's no sunlight because you have your own sun. So there's a way to build planets theoretically, if we say that the ether, which is material, could be used as the raw material for planet building projects.
Look, the pentacle, right? The 5-pointed star, okay, which is not a satanic symbol. It's actually a symbol of protection, but we don't have time for that today. But those 5 points, that's what you're talking about: earth, air, fire, water, ether. That is what those 5 points on that star represent, and that's why it is, long story short, it used to be used as a protection symbol in Europe. And if the Roman Catholic Church saw that star on your door, they'd either kick it down and kill you or convert you, basically. But that is a universal symbol, and those 5 points, that's what it represents: earth, air, fire, water, ether. It's the joining together. And look, and it's quite fascinating how your mindset changes. Like you just said, the people living inside the earth get light from sound. It's like, I didn't even bat an eyelid at that, because I'm not saying that. Again, I'm open to all perspectives. I haven't met a dwarf that lives underground yet, right? But everything is possible, and look, some of this, it seems to be a lot of this UFO phenomenon that they're admitting to, is a lot of it enters the ocean. A lot of it, you know what I mean? Like it either comes out of the ocean or is monitoring the ocean. Right. And we know less about our oceans than we do about our near Earth space. And like one of the things I love to point out to people is that you get your geology, you talk about geology, you get your geology book out, and then there's the earth, and they cut it, and there's the mantle, and then there's this and that and that and that. They got no idea, Jock, that's an edge that is not even a real educated guess. Like I think the deepest we've drilled is 26 kilometers into the earth. It's thousands of kilometers thick. We don't actually know that, there's the mantle, then there's the lava, then there's this other hot shit, then there's this other stuff, then there's a big ball in the middle. They don't know that. That's not it's just a narrative that has been repeated over and over again.
Well, also the UFOs come in and out of the big lakes, like Lake Titicaca in Bolivia. Yeah. And so it's like they're using those, one could speculate as the bodies of water as ways to hide their presence from this really, really primitive race known as humans,
Well, the other thing is too, I always think about the cataclysm, right? So you've got the cataclysm that happened 13,000 years ago. If you're a super advanced civilization, excuse me, if you're a super advanced civilization, understanding that the Sumerian text said that they knew the cataclysm was coming was so bad that they fled the planet, you got three things you could do. Number one, you could, if your technology was that great, you could just escape the atmosphere and go home or go over where you want to go. Number two is you dig a hole, and we see, complexes in the Mediterranean and across Europe that are 8 stories deep, Or if you had the technology, you'd hide underwater. You know what I mean? Like these are the three things. So it could be whoever existed here 13,000 years ago hid under the water when the cataclysm came, and they're still there. I don't know. The thing is that the fact that everything's bullshit is undeniable now. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And it just depends on what level we want to go to. Well, mate, listen, but you've been very generous with your time. We haven't scratched the surface on a few different things. I'd love to have you back again to join us again if you're open to that. But what's a final thing that we can discuss before we end this one today?
Well, let's see. We began with making a spiritual connection.
Yes.
And the importance of understanding our connection with the earth. I think this is really, really key. So crystalline material, Tesla said, everything comes back to Tesla, is alive. So crystals are alive. Our earth is composed of crystalline material. So to the degree that crystals are alive, the earth is alive. And from the crystalline material of the earth, the plants take nutrients, living crystalline mineral-based nutrients into them. They have their life from the crystals. We eat the plants and we get our life from the plants that have the life from the crystals. So this crystalline earth that Tesla said is made of material that's alive, crystals, is the base of it all. Without the crystalline earth, we'd have nothing.
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
So if we don't honor our earth, we'd have to be the biggest fools in the universe,
Well, we are at the moment. Not all of us, but look, man, that opens up another rabbit hole. You talked about sound and light, sound making light and stuff. I was interviewing an Egyptologist a little while ago, Muhammad, and he's a top bloke. And one of the questions I've had inside these pyramids is like, how did they light them? Right. And obviously there's the bloke running around with a mirror, trying to catch the sunlight through all the right angles. And then there's the smokeless oil, which didn't leave any carbon behind. But in a sealed concrete chamber, there's only so much oxygen, Jock. So
right.
You may have fire for a while, but everyone's going to suffocate. So I said to Muhammad, I asked him this question, and he gets a AA battery. And interestingly, it was an Energizer AA battery, which you can buy at your shop, I can buy at my shop, and he can buy at his shop. Isn't that interesting, right? And he's like, "What's this called?" He said, "Battery." I said, "A battery." He goes, "What's it called in America?" I said, "A battery." Everywhere it's called a battery. He goes, "What is it called in Egypt?" And I said, "I don't know, mate." And he goes, "Stone." Because stones have energy in their ancient language. So you go to Cairo, you want to get some batteries, you ask for stone, and they'll say, "What size stone do you need?" Because in their culture, stones have energy.
That's genius, man. That's really, really good. That's a genius connection.
Yeah, man.
Etymological connection.
It blew me away. Because I mean, above here, mate, I've got a set of crystals up here as well. Like I've been involved with crystals for a long time, and I do. It's like whatever. Both of our Wi-Fi's are using quartz senders and receivers. Everything, all the technology we have is actually based in silica or crystal based. And I think we don't understand. We just don't understand, mate. We don't understand. Well, listen, sir, look, I really, really appreciate your time. And let's sit down again, because I think we've got many ideas that we can explore. I want to hear about the Eagle Mount. I think that's probably a different topic altogether. But yeah, thanks very much, man. Have you got a final word for the fellow coders around the planet?
Yeah, let's head back to Egypt for a second, because check this out. So that's the Osiris shaft on the left.
Yeah.
And or Osiris, and you can see that this is all the base for the pyramids. In other words, this is the bedrock. This is what they call the bedrock.
Yeah.
But which is not bedrock. This is all, the whole Giza plateau is built. There are many photos I've seen. I haven't been to Giza, but there are many photos I've seen of vertical lines between the blocks, the sectioned concrete blocks that compose the Giza plateau.
Yeah.
So it's, as you go down in these shafts, you can just look to your left or your right and you see the vertical lines, and the geology will say those are natural fractures, and it's like, no, this is concrete. So if we understand that the ancients not only could build giant pyramids in Egypt and elsewhere around the world, Semir Osmanagic, who discovered the Bosnian pyramids, estimates that there's 100,000 pyramids on Earth, which makes it pyramid Earth. Mm-hmm. Then they could also build a plateau for their pyramids that was going to be above the flooding. In general, there might still have been some flooding that got up that high, because it was crazy going on back then with some of these floods, and would be such a stable structure that these pyramids would last for a long time. Why, again, would you put your pyramids on anything except a built foundation? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't. So this has to be built. It is built. Yeah. Most people don't get into that, but to me, that's the most interesting thing about the complex, is that they built the damn Giza plateau. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So when we did a podcast early on about logistics, we focused on the Great Pyramid. So the limestone, I'm pretty sure it's limestone that the Great Pyramid sits on. Okay. Yeah. So let's say we bought a patch of land now, Jock, and we were going to get the best grader, laser level, GPS, you name it, right? And we had to flatten that ground out. Now, I hope I get this right, but the plus or minus, so basically there's dead flat, and you've got plus or minus that is acceptable in today. And I'm pretty sure like a road is plus or minus 30 mil, or plus or minus an inch and a half. And the Giza plateau, and where the Great Pyramid is built, is plus or minus 5 millimeters, or a quarter an inch, of being perfect over 61 acres. That we could not do that today. Like, that is the how level it is over such a large area, it would be impossible to achieve today.
Right. And of course, the geologists might say, well, they just scraped it flat for their project, and that's always a possibility. Yeah. But but then if we go into these shafts, people will see vertical lines between the blocks. So it's pretty incredible to think that this massive plateau was built, but then you go, well, of course they built it. There's no way they would put these pyramids on something that they didn't understand the structural integrity of it. There's no way.
Yeah, and you got to remember too that, especially in the larger pyramids, that they go down below ground level up to 60 to 70 meters before they even start above. So they would have had to have, dug into the limestone and understood the geological structure of everything they were doing. So you got to dig the hole first down into the Queen's Chamber and all these things underneath these pyramids before you put anything on top. These people, whoever they were, had a vast understanding that we can't even begin to grasp. And I think we're only just beginning to, as you say, our megapixel, there you go. Our pixel of knowledge is growing, but it's still nothing in the grand scheme of things. We literally are just postulating in a lot of the things that we're doing here, you know.
Right, and your statement earlier about how academia wants to say, oh, these are funereal or ritual sites or whatever, ceremonial sites across the earth, and how that's absurd, because to put this much energy, not just building this pyramid, but other pyramids in the complex, and then the plateau below it with tunnels, which presumably if the plateau was built, they left as empty spaces, just like KTK in Bosnia. Then you know that you're dealing with a culture who is so dedicated to the function, that was your word, and it's a perfect word, the function of these structures, that they would spend that much time and that much energy and be so meticulous. And this doesn't look like a meticulous structure really, but we know that there was facing stones over it. And once you put the facing stones over it, you go, oh my God, what a masterpiece this was. And it's all built on a solid foundation of not just of concrete, but of their incredible wisdom and understanding of what material does energetically.
Absolutely. And I think, look, that's a good way that's a good place to end it, mate. You know, these places have energy. You go to some of these sacred sites here in Australia, and you can feel that, and not everyone is sensitive enough to feel it. We all have our different gifts. However, I can feel that stuff when I go there, you know, and they choose to put, you know, as you say, northward facing in Bosnia, you know, like these locations are chosen for a reason, you know, whether it be the water courses, whether it be the geological structure, the crystalline bases that they're using for energy work, for want of a better description. These places are amazing, and we need to, I think, obviously both of our audiences are probably pretty open-minded. However, to those friends and family that aren't open-minded, you know, this would be a perfect podcast to show them, you know, to see some of this stuff and hear this discussion, because we're both coming at this articulately, but we're both open. I mean, I'm very open. If someone, like any of the ideas that I say this is what it is, if someone presented me with enough evidence, I would change my mind like that, because that's what's important. However, you've got to be open to all these possibilities.
Right, and science, as many people don't understand, is a conversation among persons with evidence. If you don't have evidence, and the evidence can be a photo, it can be some video footage you took, it can be a quote from Victor Schauberger from a book, because then people can follow that line and go, oh, okay, I'll get that book and see what he was talking about. So any kind of evidence that's presented in a conversation, that's what science is. And so what science has become is large companies owned by secret families funding certain people to have certain points of view on certain issues, and you're like, well, that's not science. Where's the conversation?
Exactly.
There's no open conversation. We have to have an open conversation. That's what Graham Hancock said about Zahi Hawass going into the chamber without allowing videography, other people to be there. There was this new chamber that he was going to go in. It was about six years ago or something. And Hancock was absolutely freaked out, rightfully so, that there would be no public crews available to show the whole mass of humanity what he was finding in real time. You got to. Otherwise, what artifact did you steal that day would be the question that comes up to us. I mean,
of course it would be.
You know, we can't have it be like that. Science has to be open, and it's got to be a conversation, always a conversation, just like today with your great podcast, Triffin. Really, it's fantastic to talk to you, because we're just talking. We're not lecturing anybody. No. We're just talking back and forth, and we're listening to each other. And that's what we need to do. That's what humanity needs to do. We got to get more serious about listening to each other instead of shaming each other on fucking social media. Thank you very much.
Well, social media is a tool, mate. And I think, you know, social media is a tool, and there's a lot of tools on it. But to me, and it's interesting, right? You talk about manipulating your social media. Okay, we met through social media. I've met a number of guests in this podcast through social media. I actually have manipulated my feeds, whether it be Instagram, Facebook. I don't do Twitter. I can't quite understand it, but I don't give a shit enough. But but I've manipulated my feeds to serve me, right? I've manipulated my, if you jump to my Facebook feeds, it's all megalith stuff, ancient history, UFOs, cool cars, you know what I mean? And that's all I see, because when I figured out that you can create your own algorithm, well, that's cool. I'll just like the stuff that I want to see. So I've actually created my own algorithm. And if you do that, social media is quite a cool place. I mean, excellent gentlemen like yourself. I get really, really cool information. However, you know, we are in the middle of prophetic times, Jock, I think, you know, and when you're in those times, you don't know that you're in them. However, we are. You know, what has happened over the last year or 2 years, you know, into 18 months now, is going to be reviewed by our children's. What we do now is not only going to shape the world that comes next, and I think a lot of this, you know, the work that you're doing, the work that I'm trying to do here with the podcast is a massively important part of that. But we also must also remember that color, creed, sex, religion, culture, blah, blah, none of it fucking matters. It's team human. We're all fucking on this big blue ball hurtling through space. If we can't figure out how just to get the fuck along for a minute, we're going to be fucked. We probably already are. You know?
Well, then you just bring in some really good local Australian beer and you get along better. That's would be my solution.
Exactly. We cooked. Yeah, we'll have a Texas barbecue, and I'll bring the beer, mate, and we'll be all good. Don't worry about it.
You can bring the prawns. I know they're not shrimp, called shrimp over there. They're actually prawns, right?
Yeah, they're prawns. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, listen, we'll sign off this one. Thanks very much, bud. Let's sit down again soon and continue exploring. You too, man. Good on you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jock. Cheers.
1, 2.